If you play Space Marines, or Sisters of Battle, or even Imperial Guard, you will very likely paint some purity seals. And here we will learn how to paint them real quick, real good. Before I even start painting, I am of course using black primer. To cover the wax, I will use Khorne red, and I will cover the whole area so no black is really visible here. I am using 2 purity seals, so you can compare the difference as we go along the way. And when it's dry, just use Agrax Earthshade to cover the whole wax area. You definitely want to put emphasis on the recesses. Now we are gonna put down our first highlight of Khorne red and pink horror in a 50-50 ratio, and we will highlight mainly the edge of the purity seal. You might also want to leave some paint in the middle of the wax area. And once you got that, put down another highlight of pure pink horror. This time, however, you wanna make it a little bit thinner, and not only that, but you also wanna leave out some of the highlighted area that was highlighted in the step before. And for the final highlight, we are gonna use once again pink horror and white in a 2-to-1 ratio. This time you wanna leave most of the area untouched, so just keep it on the edges. If you are unsure where to put this highlight, just put it on the corner of every edge. And after this final highlight, the wax is done and we will move on to the parchment paper. For the parchment paper I am using Ushabti-Bone, and I'm just covering all of the parchment paper area. You can see that I have used my glove to test the consistency of the paint, so keep in mind that this might take you few more layers than just one. Once you build the foundation, it's time to create some shades in there. For that I am using wash of Agrax Earthshade, and definitely don't overdo it, you just wanna tint it and leave the wash mainly in the recesses. If the wash touches the wax, don't really worry about it, but keep it out of the lighter areas. Once that is done and it's dry, I'm coming back to Ushabti-Bone. With this, I'm cleaning up all of the mess that I made with the wash. So I am watering down this Ushabti-Bone and I am covering all of the edges and elevated areas. If some of the surface is not really that exposed to light, definitely just keep it tinted by the wash and keep the wash in the recesses. But overall, make it brighter. To do this, water down your paint quite a lot and push the pigment to the top where the light actually hits. And if you know that some areas are gonna be lighter and brighter, don't water down your paint for these as much. So for example, I am not watering down my paint for the edges. This is the progress once both of these are painted. And we are gonna continue with highlight of Screaming Skull. Definitely highlight all of the edges and the most elevated areas. And if you compare the left one to the right one, you can already see that it looks quite good. Now I'm finishing the right one as well. As you can see, I am hitting all of the edges and elevated areas. I'm not hitting the body of the parchment paper, but somewhere I actually do. For example, if I see a distortion on the body of the purity seal, I definitely put there a highlight. And the last highlight, if you can even call it that, is putting a white dot on each edge corner of the parchment paper. And this should really make the purity seal pop. And once you are done with that step, it's time to finish the purity seal by putting there some text. For this, either use Rhinox Hide or Abaddon Black, it really depends what you prefer. I have used here Rhinox Hide just to make it more interesting. And with some surgical brush strokes, I am trying to put there some text. So basically just create some irregular lines and you will be good to go. Now some people create purity seals without any text, and that's completely fine, but I like the text because it spices things up. And yeah, there we go, these are our purity seals. Alright painters, I hope that you will find this video useful. If you did, consider liking it, and see you next time.